My name is Sarah, and growing up I always felt like the extra piece in a puzzle that never quite fit. My mom, Gloria, made it no secret that my younger sister Rachel was her favorite. Rachel was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who always got the attention. I was the quiet one, the one who liked books and drawing and staying out of drama. My dad left when I was 5, and ever since, Mom became a different person. She poured all her love into Rachel and treated me like I was just extra. I tried not to let it bother me, but deep down, I was hurting. The only person who truly made me feel seen was my high school boyfriend, Jake. He was sweet, gentle, and treated me like I was the most important person in the world. We met when I was a sophomore and he was a senior. From the moment we started talking, we clicked. He wasn't like the other boys. He noticed the small things about me, like how I doodled flowers in my notebooks or how I always tied my shoes twice for luck. Jake gave me the kind of love I never got from home. And for the first time in my life, I thought I mattered. But then something happened. Something that tore my heart into 1,000 pieces. I came home one evening after staying late for art club, humming to myself, excited to call Jake and tell him about my latest painting. I opened the door to our apartment and heard laughter. Not just any laughter. Rachel's. And my mom's. And Jake's. They were sitting in the living room, laughing like they were one big happy family. Jake was holding Rachel's hand. I froze. Everything in me screamed that this couldn't be real. But it was. And what Jake said next made my world stop. "We wanted to tell you sooner, Sarah," he said gently, not meeting my eyes. "But your mom said it was better this way." My mom stood up, smoothed down her shirt, and looked at me with a smile I'll never forget. "Sweetheart," she said like she was doing me a favor, "Jake and Rachel are getting married." I don't remember what happened after that. I think I blacked out. The next thing I knew, I was in my room, face buried in my pillow, shaking from the kind of cry that leaves your chest hollow. I was 16, and my mom had convinced my boyfriend to marry my sister. That was the moment everything changed for me. After that night, I stopped trying to be a part of their world. I focused on school, poured myself into art, and worked hard to get into college. I applied for scholarships and got into a university out of state. I didn't look back. But it wasn't easy. There were nights I barely had anything to eat, times when I had to choose between buying paint or groceries. I worked late nights at a bookstore, cleaned classrooms on weekends, and sometimes cried myself to sleep. But I kept going, because I knew, deep down, that I wanted a better life. A life where I was more than just the girl who got left behind. One day, while working a shift at the campus coffee shop, a man came in who would change everything. He was tall, with kind eyes and a calm presence. He ordered a black coffee and asked if the bookstore upstairs had any poetry books. I told him where to find them and smiled, even though I was tired and my feet ached. The next day, he came back. And the day after that. Eventually, we started talking. His name was Daniel. He was in town for business and stopped by the cafe because he liked the peaceful vibe. We started sharing little things. He told me about his childhood. I told him about mine. He listened when I talked. Really listened. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was thoughtful, patient, and kind. We started dating slowly. He never pushed. He always made sure I felt safe. I told him everything. About my mom. About Rachel. About Jake. He didn't judge. He just held my hand and said, "You deserved better. And I'm so sorry they made you feel like you didn't matter." I think that was the moment I fell in love with him. A few years later, Daniel proposed. Not with a big show or a fancy dinner. Just the two of us, under a tree in the park where we had our first picnic. He said he wanted to spend the rest of his life making sure I never felt invisible again. I said yes. We planned a small wedding. Nothing too grand. Just a celebration of love, with close friends and a few people from my side. Reluctantly, I invited my mom, Rachel, and Jake. Mostly because Daniel thought it would be healing. I didn't expect them to come, but they did. Rachel walked in wearing a bright red dress like it was her day. Jake followed, his eyes darting around awkwardly. My mom acted like she was the queen of the event, even though we hadn't spoken properly in years. They all came, smiling like nothing had ever happened. And for a moment, I felt that old ache rise up in my chest. But then I looked at Daniel, standing at the altar, waiting for me with tears in his eyes. And I remembered who I was now. Stronger, wiser, loved. The ceremony was beautiful. I wore a simple ivory dress. Daniel looked like something out of a movie. My best friend, Claire, gave a speech that made everyone tear up. The food was amazing, the music soft and dreamy. Then came the reception, the moment that would change everything. People were dancing, laughing, drinking champagne. I was chatting with Claire when I heard my mom's voice behind me. "Sarah," she said, her voice sharp, "you didn't tell us who your husband really is." I turned around slowly. Rachel and Jake were standing beside her, mouths open, eyes wide like they'd seen a ghost. My mom pointed to the projector screen that had just lit up behind us. And that's when I saw it. A picture of Daniel, standing next to a silver plaque that read, "Founder and CEO of North Star Industries." The whispers started immediately. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass. My mom's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Because Daniel wasn't just some quiet, kind man from the coffee shop. He was a billionaire, tech genius. And no one in my family had any idea. Not until that very moment. My mom's face turned pale. Rachel grabbed Jake's arm like she was going to faint. And I just stood there, holding my champagne glass, smiling softly, watching as the people who once made me feel like nothing realized I had everything. But just as the room started buzzing, someone walked in through the back doors of the hall, holding a large manila envelope. And what they said next made everyone go completely silent. The man who walked in looked official, black suit, neatly combed hair, and a serious face like he meant business. He held up the envelope and asked loudly, "Is there a Sarah Thompson here?" My heart skipped a beat. People turned and stared. The music cut off. For a second, I thought maybe it was a mistake. But he walked straight to me, ignoring the 100 curious eyes on him. "Yes, I'm Sarah," I said, my voice steady even though my hands felt cold. He handed me the envelope with a slight bow. "This was requested to be delivered to you at exactly this time, during your wedding celebration." I blinked. "Who sent it?" He gave me a small smile. "Your husband." And just like that, he turned and left. I looked over at Daniel, who was standing near the projector, watching me with that calm, knowing expression he always had. He nodded once, gently encouraging me to open it. So I did. Inside was a stack of papers and a single note in Daniel's handwriting. It read, "I wanted your family to know exactly who they ignored, who they hurt, and who they underestimated. But more importantly, I want them to know who you've become. Because you're the true story here." Beneath the note were documents, pages and pages of them. Deeds, shares, business contracts, press clippings. Evidence of Daniel's company, his achievements, and most shocking of all, paperwork showing that I, Sarah Thompson, was now co-owner of North Star Industries. I wasn't just the wife of a billionaire. I was his equal partner. A woman with full rights to everything he owned. The gasps around the room turned into stunned silence. Jake took a step back like the floor was shaking under him. Rachel's mouth dropped open, and she actually whispered, "Wait, she owns it too?" My mom sat down in the nearest chair like her legs gave out. It felt like everything had frozen. But I was calm. I was standing tall in my white dress, holding the papers like armor. Then I stepped toward them. "Now you know," I said, quietly but firmly. "You threw me away like I didn't matter. Like I was nothing. And now you're finally seeing me for who I really am." Jake looked like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. Rachel, shaking, said, "Sarah, we didn't know." "Oh, you knew what you were doing." I cut in, my voice sharp now. "Mom pushed Jake toward you, and you didn't care who got hurt. You never even apologized." "But we thought you'd moved on," my mom said weakly, like that would make it better. "I had to move on," I said. "You gave me no choice." The crowd was dead silent. Friends, guests, even the waiters were frozen, watching what was happening. And then, as if the universe wanted to put the final stamp on this moment, Daniel stepped forward. He took my hand in his and said in front of everyone, "I didn't fall in love with her because of her past. I fell in love with her because, even after everything, she still had kindness in her heart. She still believed in love. And she never stopped being good. That's the kind of woman I'd give everything to." There were sniffles from the crowd. A few guests clapped softly, not sure if it was appropriate yet. But the moment had flipped. I wasn't the broken girl anymore. I was the one who had risen above. But just as I thought the drama was over, something happened that no one could have predicted. Rachel fainted, right there on the dance floor. She crumpled like a puppet with its strings cut, and Jake dropped to his knees beside her, panicking. "Call an ambulance," someone shouted. People rushed forward. Daniel pulled me aside quickly, away from the chaos. "Are you okay?" "I think so," I said, still a little stunned. "What do you think happened to her?" Daniel looked over at Rachel, who was now being checked by a nurse guest. "It could be stress. Or guilt. Or," he paused, "something else." Before I could ask what he meant, my mom came storming over to us, her face full of rage, tears streaking her makeup. "What kind of trick is this?" she snapped at Daniel. "You planned this whole thing just to humiliate us." Daniel didn't flinch. He looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No. I planned this to celebrate my wife. But I won't lie, I did hope it would open your eyes." "You're just trying to make us look bad," she shouted. "You did that on your own," I said softly. "I never needed revenge. I just wanted you to see me. But if this is what it takes, then so be it." My mom opened her mouth to speak again, but before she could, Jake ran up to us, pale and sweating. "She's pregnant," he said, voice trembling. Rachel is pregnant." The room went quiet again. Everyone turned to look. And then Jake added one more sentence, one that knocked the air right out of me. "But the baby, it's not mine." I stared at him, stunned. "What?" Jake was shaking now, eyes red. "I just found out yesterday. She's been seeing someone else. For months. I thought it was just stress or cold feet, but she lied to me." My mom gasped, stumbling back like someone hit her. Rachel, still lying on the ground but now conscious, turned her head slowly toward Jake. "No," she whispered, tears falling. "Don't. You did this," he said. "You and your mother. You ruined everything." He stood up and walked away. I couldn't move. Not because I was hurt, but because for the first time ever, they weren't breaking me. They were breaking themselves. Daniel pulled me closer, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. "Come on," he said. "Let's go enjoy the rest of our night." And we did. But I could feel it. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because what Rachel had done was just the beginning. And what I was about to discover next would turn everything upside down again. The rest of the wedding party went on, but there was a strange kind of heaviness in the air. People danced, smiled, and toasted champagne, but the shock from what had just happened still lingered like smoke after a fire. Rachel was taken home by a family friend. Jake disappeared without saying goodbye. My mom sat in silence for the rest of the evening, her plate untouched, eyes locked on me and Daniel with a mixture of regret and rage. But I didn't care. For once, I was the one in the spotlight, and not because I begged for it, but because I earned it. I felt proud. Strong. Like I had finally stepped out of the shadows. Still, something about what Jake said wouldn't leave my mind. She's been seeing someone else. Who? Why? I didn't want to care. I didn't want to get pulled back into their drama. But deep inside me, something whispered that I wasn't hearing the whole story. And that story was going to affect more than just Rachel and Jake. The next morning, Daniel and I were supposed to fly out for our honeymoon. But before we could even finish packing, I got a message. It was from Jake. "Can we meet? I need to talk. Just you. Please." Daniel saw the message. He raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. I showed it to him and asked, "Should I go?" He nodded slowly. "If you need closure, then yes. But be careful. He's hurting, and hurt people can be unpredictable." I agreed to meet Jake at a small diner near the city. It was a quiet place where college students studied and retired folks drank coffee with the newspaper. I sat at a corner booth, waiting, wondering what bombshell he was going to drop next. When Jake walked in, he looked like a different person. His hair was messy, shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. He sat down across from me and didn't even order anything. Just stared at the table for a minute before speaking. "I made the worst mistake of my life," he said. I said nothing. I just waited. "I didn't just lose you back then," he continued. "I lost myself. Your mom got in my head, made me think you weren't good enough, that you weren't going anywhere. She said Rachel had more ambition, more whatever. And I was stupid enough to believe her." I clenched my jaw. "Why are you telling me this now, Jake?" "Because Rachel's been lying to everyone. Not just me. To you, too." I narrowed my eyes. "What do you mean?" He slid a photo across the table. It was grainy but clear enough. Rachel was standing at a hotel entrance, wrapped around a man in a business suit, my mother's boss. A high-level real estate mogul who Mom had been working for the past 3 years. Married. With 2 kids. I stared at the photo. My stomach twisted. Jake leaned forward. "She's been having an affair with him since before we got married. And from what I've pieced together, your mom knew." My mouth went dry. Jake continued, voice low and serious. "They thought if Rachel married me, a safe guy, it would make the affair less suspicious. Just to cover up. Your mom encouraged it because she thought it would help her get ahead at work. Maybe even marry into wealth if the boss left his wife." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that my mom helped Rachel cheat, used you as a shield, and was trying to climb the ladder by pushing Rachel into an affair?" Jake nodded. "Yes. And Sarah, there's more. I think Rachel got pregnant on purpose. I think she was trying to trap him." My hands trembled. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated evil. I stood up, shaking. "I need to go." Jake grabbed my wrist gently. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I really am. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know the truth." I yanked my arm away and walked out, trying not to throw up on the sidewalk. Everything felt upside down again. All the healing, all the strength I'd built, it was like someone ripped off a bandage and poured salt into an old wound. But I wasn't the same girl I was before. I wasn't going to cry in the street. I was going to do something. Back at the hotel, I showed Daniel the photo and told him everything Jake said. He listened quietly, his jaw tightening as the story unfolded. "She used you," he said quietly. "And she used Rachel as a pawn too." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your mother has always been obsessed with control, right? She saw Rachel as her project. But you were too independent. That scared her. She pushed you out so she could mold Rachel into something she could use." That hit me like a thunderbolt. It made perfect, horrible sense. Then Daniel said something that changed the game completely. "Sarah, if your mother helped cover up an affair between her boss and your sister, and there's evidence, I think there's a way to expose all of it." I stared at him. "You mean publicly?" He nodded. "Publicly. Legally. All of it. I have people who can help. Investigators. Lawyers." I felt my heart race. "But wouldn't that ruin them?" "Yes," Daniel said calmly. "And they ruined you first." I sat down, silent. Could I really do that? Could I bring down the very people who spent years tearing me down? Was that revenge? Or was it finally justice? Daniel placed a gentle hand on mine. "You don't have to decide now. But if you're ready, we can make sure they never hurt anyone again." I nodded slowly. "I'm ready." A week later, we postponed our honeymoon. Daniel's team began digging. They found messages between Rachel and the real estate mogul, financial transactions, hotel bookings, even emails from my mom using company resources to cover things up. It was bad. Worse than I thought. They built a file so thick it could crush a career and a marriage. Daniel handed me a flash drive and said, "You get to decide what happens next." I stared at the tiny drive in my hand. One little object, carrying enough fire to burn down everything they had built. And then I got a call. Not from Rachel. Not from my mom. From the mogul's wife. She wanted to meet. face to face. And she didn't sound angry. She sounded curious. That's when I knew this story wasn't done. Not even close.
And what came next?
Was going to be the biggest shock yet. The call from the real estate mogul's wife, her name was Linda, was short and calm, almost too calm. She said she'd heard rumblings about her husband, Rick, and wanted to clarify a few things with me in person. At first, I didn't know if it was a trap, but something in her voice made me think otherwise. She didn't sound like a woman defending her husband. She sounded like a woman who had suspected everything and was ready to make her move. Daniel and I met her at a quiet, upscale cafe in a private booth. Linda arrived dressed in a gray suit, sunglasses tucked into her designer bag, and a sharp expression that said she wasn't here for tea and cookies. She got straight to the point. "I've known about the affair for 6 months," she said, flipping open a leather folder filled with her own evidence. "I didn't have names until recently. But then your mother's name popped up and your sister's. I thought you might want to compare notes." Linda slid a copy of a private investigator's report across the table to me. Photos, call logs, even bank transfers to a secret account Rachel had been using, one my mother set up using her own boss's signature. My blood turned cold. Daniel leaned over, reading the report quickly. He whistled under his breath. "Your mom forged his name?" Linda nodded. "To move company funds into Rachel's hands as a kind of secret payment. They were playing with fire. And now they're going to burn." I looked up at Linda, stunned. "Why are you telling me this?" She gave me a small, sad smile. "Because I'm not the type of woman who gets angry and cries. I'm the type who makes sure people pay for what they've done. And I think you are too." For a moment I was silent. She was right. But I didn't just want revenge. I wanted truth. I wanted healing. I wanted closure. I reached into my purse and handed her a copy of the flash drive Daniel's team had compiled.
"Here.
Everything we have. Use it however you want." Linda took it without hesitation. "Don't worry. I will." And with that, she stood up, shook my hand like we were closing a business deal, and left. The storm was coming, and I didn't feel scared. I felt free. But of course, things couldn't stay calm for long. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was my mom. She never called me unless she wanted something. Her voice was frantic. "Sarah, oh my God, you need to help us." I stayed silent. She kept talking. "The company is auditing me and Rick's wife, Linda, filed some kind of complaint with the board. They think I stole money. They're saying I'm going to be investigated. You have to do something." I almost laughed. "You mean like how you did something when you convinced my boyfriend to marry my sister? Or when you covered up her affair? Sarah, I'm your mother."
"Yeah.
"And I stopped letting you control me a long time ago." She paused, and then her voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "Rachel is losing her mind. Jake left her, Rick blocked her number, and now she's saying she wants to hurt herself." My breath caught. Even after everything, I didn't want anyone to get hurt like that. "Where is she?" I asked. "At my house. She won't eat. She won't come out of her room. I don't know what to do." Daniel was standing beside me, reading my expression like a book. "I'll go," I said. "Alone." "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. "I need to see this through." I drove to my mother's house, the same house where I once heard Jake laughing in the living room with Rachel. The same house where I learned how to feel small. It looked exactly the same, but I didn't feel the same. I walked in, and everything smelled like desperation and stale perfume. My mom looked like a ghost, hair messy, makeup smudged. "She's upstairs," she whispered. I climbed the stairs and knocked on the door. No answer. "Rachel," I said. "It's me." Silence. Then, slowly, the door opened. Rachel stood there, eyes red, hair tangled, holding a crumpled tissue. "You came?" she said, voice small. I nodded. "Yeah." She sank to the floor, hugging her knees. "I messed up so bad, Sarah." I sat down next to her, keeping a little distance. "I know. I didn't mean to fall for him," she whispered. I thought I could finally have something for myself. Mom always pushed me, always said I had to be perfect, and I was so tired of it. I looked at her carefully. Why didn't you just say something? Why hurt so many people? She shook her head. Because I didn't think I deserved anything unless I took it. That sentence sat heavy in the air. We were both quiet for a while. Then Rachel asked the one question I didn't expect. Do you hate me? I thought about it. I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't. I don't hate you, I said softly. I pity you, because you let Mom use you, and you still haven't figured out who you are without her. Rachel started crying again. Real tears this time. The kind that come from regret, not shame. I'm sorry, Sarah, she said. I know that's not enough. But I am. I stood up slowly. You should talk to someone. A therapist.
Not me.
Not Mom. Someone who can help you figure yourself out. Rachel nodded through tears. And for the first time in years, I saw her as more than just the girl who stole my life. I saw a broken version of myself, still trapped in the house I escaped from. I left that day with no intention of coming back. And then, just when I thought it was all behind me, another bomb dropped. Daniel came home late that evening, holding an envelope he picked up from the mailbox. No return address, he said, handing it to me. I opened it. Inside was a letter.
Typed.
Anonymous. And what it said shattered everything I thought I knew. Sarah, you've been lied to. Rachel's baby isn't Rick's or Jake's. The real father? Look closer. Someone closer than you think. Someone in your own family. Ask your mother what really happened last year during that business trip to Atlanta. She knows the truth. And when you find out, you'll finally understand what she's been hiding. I dropped the letter. My skin turned cold. My mind raced. Rachel's baby. Not Rick's. Not Jake's. Then who? My mother's business trip? Suddenly, my heart pounded so hard it hurt. There was one person Mom visited during that trip. Her cousin's son. A man named Trevor. My half-uncle. Someone Rachel always seemed oddly close to. Someone Mom once said had good genes. I stared at the wall, everything crashing in my head like broken glass. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning of the ugliest secret yet. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it, but I had to. Because whatever was coming next was darker than anything I had imagined.